And self-determination is such a powerful idea. We use it a lot, but at a basic level, it's the human assertion of being able to live as a free person. It's the human affirmation that all of us are not commodities for markets. It's the human affirmation that we were not born unfree. It's the human affirmation that our bodies and our dreams and our desires cannot be placed on the marketplace. And in fact, they are things that we willingly give up and share as gifts to humanity, right? So this is a basic idea of self-determination, and it's a powerful one. And it expressed individually, it's powerful, but particularly when we express it collectively, as people who are sitting together in this room, as people in our neighborhoods, as people in our workplaces, as people in our communities, as land defenders, however we express that collectively, that collective self-determination and that aspiration really for fulfilling our highest desire for freedom is one that I think is incredibly powerful. And so I think in terms of building a commons, that's something that we can strive towards doing. Thank you.
You have been listening to excerpts from a panel on the tragedy of the market from crisis to commons, recorded on January 6 at SFU Harbor Center. In this part of the panel, there were three speakers: Art Manuel, spokesperson for the Indigenous Network on Economies and Trade; Dave Bleakney, National Education Representative for the Canadian Union of Postal Workers; and Harsha Walia, South Asian activist who has been involved in migrant justice, indigenous movements, and many anti-racist movements for over a decade.
You're listening to CJSF 90.1 FM, Burnaby. You can also listen to us at 93.9 Cable FM or online at www.cjsf.ca.
On February 22nd, the 10th Annual Community Radio Homelessness Marathon will occupy 14 full hours of people-powered radio on 37 stations across Canada, turning the airwaves over to homeless people and their allies for a nationwide discussion of homeless issues and possible solutions. This year's Homelessness Marathon will broadcast from Montreal, Halifax, Vancouver, and other locations starting Wednesday, February 22nd at 2 in the afternoon and running until 4 in the morning Pacific Time. Vancouver's live cast features homeless media practitioners and musicians. You can join them at W2 Media Cafe, 111 West Hastings Street, from 8 p.m. to midnight. Or tune in to CJSF 90.1 FM and streaming online at www.cjsf.ca.
You are listening to Smitten by the Written on CJSF 90.1 FM, 89.3 Cable FM, and online at www.cjsf.ca on TELUS HD channel 3706. We're pleased today to bring you Vancouver singer-songwriter Katie Rocks on today's program. Katie and I will be discussing her life as a songwriter, her start in music, as well as her life on the farm in Alberta. But before that, here's a song from Katie's album, Pony Up, titled Now or Never, on CJSF 90.1 FM. Good afternoon, everyone, and you're listening to Smitten by the Written on CJSF 90.1 FM, 89.3 Cable FM, and online at www.cjsf.ca, as well as on TELUS HD channel 3706. My name is KP Wee, and I'm with you today. It's my pleasure to have Canadian acoustic singer-songwriter Katie Rocks on the program with us. So good afternoon, Katie, and thank you so much for joining us on Smitten by the Written on CJSF 90.1 FM.
That's such a cute name.
Oh, and how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. So let's get started, Katie. I understand you're from Alberta originally, and now you're based in the Vancouver area. So let's get this one out of the way first. You've been quoted as saying Alberta is the cookie dough and the West Coast is chocolate chips. Can't have one without the other. What does that mean exactly?
I don't know. I said that recently, didn't I?
Yeah, I did get that on your Facebook profile. That's where I got that from.
Oh, is that where?
And I started Googling that, wanted to find out if that was an original quote, and I couldn't find anything on it.
It is. I did say that. It's funny because you say that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did say that, didn't I? I don't really even know what it means, other than I'm so much both of them. And I think they complement each other, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes I say things and then I have to think about the meaning later.
Fair enough.
But, yeah, I feel, I'm so much a part of them. I almost sometimes feel torn over which place I love more. I love Alberta, but I cannot imagine leaving Vancouver. I love both places. So I guess, I have no idea what I meant. Take from it what you will.
I guess my interpretation would be that you love both Alberta and BC, and glad to be one of those two places. So that's great.
Yeah, very true.
And just as you mentioned, you grew up in Alberta, and just reading up on you a bit, you've described yourself as a farm girl who knew you wanted to sing from the time you were 8 years old. So maybe tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I literally grew up on a farm. We raised Black Angus cattle, so I grew up on a big ranch outside of Calgary, and which in Alberta is much more common. Everybody's kind of from a farm there. It seems, or so many people are. And when you're out here, there's not as many. And so often when I meet people, they don't know that at first, because I live, in big city girl now. But so often I find people, when I say something like, "Oh yeah, I grew up in Alberta, I grew up on a farm," people will go, "Oh, so that's why you're like that." And I'm always saying, I'm like, what? But I guess just there's something about, being, and it's funny because when I do meet other people who are farm people or something, there's always a bit of a connection that you can tell, you're like, oh yeah, you're from a farm too, and you get that connection. And I suppose it's the same of anybody who's from a certain place. You meet those other people and you're all kind of like-minded for whatever it is. And as for singing, it was really my sister who, my mom said she was just always singing, and my mom said, fine, if you like singing so much, let's put you in singing lessons. And I just wanted to do whatever my sister was doing. Okay. And so I went in singing lessons, and I wasn't even very good. I just wanted to do whatever my sister was doing, and through that, I was really shy. I would do it, but I didn't want anything to do with the contest or the festivals or the recitals. I wanted nothing to do with that. And when I did my first recital, finally, everybody who's taking singing lessons from the same singing teacher, she put on a recital, and I got up to sing my song, and I just started to cry. I looked at my mom, and I was like, no! And I cried, and I ran to my mom. I was so embarrassed. I was just so shy, I guess. And then, I sat through the rest of the recital, and then I got up at the end and sang the song again, and I managed to get through it. And at the end of the year, my teacher gave me a Trooper Award for getting back up and singing again. And then, they started to convince me eventually to do one of the Kiwanis music festivals. And so I did a song from Beauty and the Beast, and I got first place. Nice. Yeah, and I was so excited about getting first place, I guess, that I just decided to keep going with it, and just eventually, got bitten by the bug of performing.
That's a fantastic story there. So I guess my question now would be how different is it singing in front of a group of friends in their living rooms, or singing in your own room, compared to as you did in competitions at festivals? How different is it, I guess? Oh,
I'd way rather sing in front of strangers than sing in front of people I know.
Oh, no way.
It is so awkward when you're sitting. I find it so awkward when you're with your friends, I guess because they know you completely, and when you're singing in front of strangers, they don't know you at all, and so it's so much easier. I don't know, there's just something to me that is way easier to do, because they don't already have a preconceived notion of who you are, or, and I guess kind of with your friends too, you feel like you're maybe showing off or something. So unless your friends are musicians, in that case, then it's really fun to sit around. But yeah, I don't often sit around with my friends these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I guess for some of your songs, would you say that they kind of describe about your life, or maybe some kind of your experience is portrayed in the songs?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as I'm getting older, if I can call it that, I find that it's more. It almost gets harder to draw from your own life. You know how they say that saying about how like you have a lifetime to record your first album, but you have like only a couple of years or whatever to record your second. I definitely find that in songwriting these days. I tend to be drawing more from either the most mundane things and making them interesting, you know, or trying to see the poetry in the most simple of things, you know, because the other parts of my life, like the growing up parts and the heartbreaks and all those things are kind of, for the most part, kind of, I'm past that stage in my life, so there's not as easy to write about it anymore from a direct perspective. So I tend to nowadays draw on other people, you know, sometimes it's a movie that inspires me or just something somebody says, you know, kind of, or like I said, sometimes you just try to find something in the most simplest of terms. You know, I was writing a song once about my guitar just sitting in the corner because I hadn't played it for a while, and I was like, well, that itself is kind of a song, you know. It's kind of a lonely image of this guitar sitting there getting dust on it, being ignored, and I was like, that in itself, you know, you can kind of create a song out of that. So I'm just always kind of searching and kind of trying to keep my ears and kind of whatever inspires me, and I think, oh, write about that. But it's always, for the most part, 90% of the time, it's about something that I've gone through or related to or something.
Okay, that's good stuff. Now, I just wanted to ask you a little bit. I understand that you kind of have an interesting story as well, like in terms of getting your first gig in a band. How did that come about?
Yeah, I was working at a recording studio. I used to work at the Warehouse's Bryan Adams recording studio, and so I would meet tons of bands and different producers, you know, and people would always say to me that they wanted a project, you know, and a couple times I sang for some Disney people who said, you know, if we could find the right voice for this song, and, you know, and I'd sing for them, but never anything really panned out. And then the producer of Jackalope was looking for a singer, and he asked me about it. And again, I just thought it was another one of those, yeah, they're going to ask me, and then I'll never hear from them again. And, you know, but then it actually turned into something, so I just went with it.
All right. Now, I mean, we all think of songwriting as a wonderful thing to do in life, or at least I do. so tell us, you know, if that's the case, you know, songwriting, you know, is wonderful, or what's been the biggest challenge for you?
It is difficult. It's because so often your songwriting, you really have to songwrite for yourself. You know, I was actually just saying to somebody the other day, I wrote this, you know, I was doing this whole recording, and I spent my day in my little like studio writing and recording and doing all this stuff, and I was playing it, and I said, the funny thing is I did this for me. Like, I'm not getting paid to do this right now. You know, I'm like, probably no one will ever listen to this. It's just something that I did, you know, and so I find, yeah, sometimes it's finding that balance of why you're doing it, and you really ultimately have to be doing it for yourself. And you know, and as a singer-songwriter, as somebody who also performs, then it allows me a lot more, you know, I get the opportunity to share the songs with people and go on the road, and, you know, and you have a website and create all those things, you know, that gives me a platform in which to share the things that I write. But if you're just writing, that to me is difficult. I mean, I do it anyways because I love writing, but that is difficult because if you don't have a platform to share it, you know, you need to go find one, and that's a whole other ballgame.
All right, so we're with Canadian singer-songwriter Katie Rocks here on CJSF 90.1 FM. I'm just going to go back a little bit and ask you about the farm, Katie. Now, how difficult was it to leave behind the farm and relocate to Vancouver?
Not difficult at all, because I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to live in a big city. You know, when you live on a farm, you feel like, you know, you can't get pizza delivered to your house, and you're out in the minus 40 weather feeding the cattle and the horses, you know, like they come first and you come second. And so it was always work. Like, I couldn't wait. Like, I loved having sleepovers at other people's houses because that meant I didn't have to do work for the day, you know? And so I talk about that like it's a bad thing, but you got to keep in mind that's your feeling when you're 12 years old, you know? And so the thought of, I remember I decided I wanted to move to Los Angeles, and I was like 10 or 12 or something. And so I told my mom I was going to start keeping track of all of my chores so she could pay me, so I could save my money, so I could move there. And I did it. I was like, yeah, I slept today and I did this, and I was like keeping this log so I could move, because I thought that was like the key to everything. But what was funny is my mom never discouraged it. You know, my mom and my dad were both like, okay, sure, do your chores, save your money, move to LA, whatever you want.
Right.
Like, they were always very encouraging. But I mean, moving away from my family was really hard. We're very, very close, and so, you know, that was definitely a tear-jerking moment. But it wasn't, I just knew that I needed to go, and I was excited to live in the city. And, you know, and nowadays I miss home a lot, and sometimes I think it'd be nice to be on a farm again. But when you're, you know, I moved out here when I was 19. When you're like that, you're just so excited about life that I don't think you or for me anyways, I didn't really think too much about things. I just go and do them.
Right. Do you miss any of the animals?
Yes, I miss them so much. I'm always like, I have to have a farm again one day and have some, you know, we had donkeys and we had horses and we had cats and dogs and we had ducks and cattle, and, you know, we had so much stuff that I miss them all the time. And whenever I go back, we don't have the cattle anymore, but we still have a couple horses. So whenever I go, I make sure we go, you know, go for a ride and do all those things. So yeah, I miss it a lot.
Good stuff. Now, so Katie, how can fans keep up with your latest happenings?
Definitely on my website. I have a website, katierocksmusic.com, and I'm always posting, you know, I'm also really big into Twitter. I'm on Twitter all the time. I think it's such a great way to connect with people. I'm always doing contests that I find work the best with Twitter, and I think it's that is an amazing platform to, especially when you're doing, I find like things like songwriting, because you can share with people, you know, today so often I'll take to my Twitter and be like, today I'm writing about this, give me some words for, you know, what do you think of when you think about whatever the topic is. And so often people will write back to me and give me ideas, and, you know, it's fun because it's so immediate. So that's another way that people can, if you want to know me every day, be on Twitter. If you just want to know what I'm doing sometimes, then just go to my website. Right.
So again, that's katierocksmusic.com, KATIEROX music.com as in Twitter. Perfect. So Kate, thanks so much for being in the program with us today. That's all the time we have for today's show. So hopefully we'll talk again soon. And we again want to thank you for making yourself available for us.
Yeah, thanks so much for your interest in chatting with me.
All right. That was Katie Rocks, Canadian acoustic singer-songwriter, joining us here on CJSF 90.1 FM, and we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. That was an interview I had with Katie Rocks recently, and it's interesting she mentioned near the end of the interview that she's on Twitter all the time, and she's also on Facebook as well. She also has her own website at katierocksmusic.com, and an interesting thing is how she goes on Twitter and asks fans for suggestions and ideas when she's songwriting. It's kind of fun, and how she interacts with her fans a lot. And a piece of good news she mentioned via email last week is that she's sold out the online hard copy CD orders for her album Pony Up. But if you'd like to purchase a download of Pony Up or any of her other albums, you can do that right through her website. Again, it's katierocksmusic.com. And she was also in the spirit of Valentine's Day recently, and so she turned into a project where she asked people on Twitter to give her their thoughts about love, and she turned it into a song, and she posted on the next day, like on her website. So just a great story there about her songwriting. And you're listening to Smitten by the Written on CJSF 90.1 FM. Now we'll listen to a song titled Leave Me Here from her album Pony Up, and she performed this with Sebastian Lefebvre. So let's enjoy this one, and you're listening to CJSF 90.1 FM. That's all the time we have for this segment. You've been listening to Smitten by the Written on CJSF 90.1 FM. A special thanks to Katie Rocks for coming onto our program for an interview. And again, you can check her out on Twitter, Facebook, as well as on her website, katierocksmusic.com. We hope you enjoyed the interview and the music, and we'll talk to you again next time on Smitten by the Written. Thanks for tuning in.